Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show, everyone. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, hey, welcome into the program. I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for today's program. So today on the show, we have our good friend Scott Schober. He'll be joining us here in just a moment to talk all things security. We have a ton of different, a ton of different stuff to talk about. And with that being said, we'll bring him on. Everyone, again, I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for today's show. ComputerAmerica.com. That's what I should probably lead with. That's where you'll find everything, past shows, future shows, all the shows, video archives, podcasts. Of course, if you can't catch us live on IRN, you can, of course, catch us there. There we'll also have links to our guest website and any articles or anything that we discuss. Going to be, very important for today because there's a lot of different things we're going to be, really discussing. And on top of that, there will be information about our guest and actually future conferences, which, it's I'm happy, I'm excited. I'm also life seems to be returning back to normal, at least somewhat normal, and that's exciting to see. So everyone, why don't we go ahead and bring them on and just get started with today's show. So as I said before, Scott Schober, longtime Computer America correspondent, our resident cybersecurity expert, and of course, all-around nice guy. Scott, welcome back onto Computer America. How you doing?
How you been?
I'm doing well, and thank you for joining us. And I think with I'm trying to think of so many things at the same time, and none of them are coming out right. Scott, how you been? It's been a month. Everything going well?
Yeah, everything's going well. Dealing with the pandemic as best we can. We've had a couple little scares here and there, but no one in our company, fortunately, has had the COVID. But everybody seems to know somebody that's been dealing with it and getting through it. But I'm happy to say we've been busy as anything. Probably one of our busiest years to the start. Last year, I thought was our busiest year ever. I think this year may be. So that's good. But security tools are constantly needed, and the hacks and in the world of cyber just gets crazier and crazier. So it's good for business, but I feel bad because it's not good for other companies and individuals that are the victims of all these hacks.
Well, and although at the same time I'm sure that a lot of your business has to do with, really the realization by these companies that what we've been kind of dealing with for the past couple of months, the last year, people going digital, people going online, needing secure networks, needing to make sure that, all these things are happening, that it's here to stay. It's not something that we're just going to deal with in 2020 and then, there's going to be a flip that switches and we all go back to the way it was before. Maybe a lot of your business has to do with the fact that things have changed and things will stay changed for, forever.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think this is the new norm for business, perhaps. And two, I think probably all companies have maybe experienced this one way or another, in the past, we would have more competitive companies, more offerings, money was spread out more. Unfortunately, a lot of those companies couldn't survive the storm,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not marketing, they're not pivoting as quick as they should to stay in front of customers. So we've had to adapt. Other companies have had to adapt to stay competitive. And I think only the strongest really survive. I mean, you guys have been around for decades, kind of like us. This is our 49th year in business. So we know how to survive the tough times and how to make things work through all the different storms. But it doesn't mean you ever can sit back and relax. You got to roll up your sleeves and just work that much harder and that much smarter.
Yeah, it's real easy to run a company when times are good. But yeah, to stick around for as long as we have, that's what you get. Those are the days that you prepare for when you have nothing else to think about. So very good to see. And again, I'm glad that you and yours are all safe and sound. And hopefully, COVID vaccines are going out. I know I don't think I mentioned this on the show yet, but we just got Craig, and actually I think within about a week, he should be getting his second dose of his vaccine. So those are rolling out, and hopefully you have access up there.
Yeah, that's good. And I have not gotten mine yet. I still fall under that age group in New Jersey. I'm too young, I guess, which is, I guess, a good thing. Both my parents and certainly Gary's our CTO and founder. He got his second round of shots, and it was not that, or vaccine. It wasn't that bad. Yeah. And same with my mom. So I'm glad they're protected, and I think it is important to get, those that are a little older and maybe those that have underlying conditions, those in the healthcare sectors that are on the front line. I'm glad to see that they're kind of a priority in getting them the vaccine first and foremost.
Well, and of course, with I wanted to lead out with kind of how you are in vaccines and that kind of thing, and again, kind of a return to normal to an extent, because I wanted to talk about FutureCon, which you've spoken at before. We've kind of covered what you've talked out there. This next one is coming up Thursday, April 8th, 2021. You have a number of panelists. You have a keynote speaker, Mr. James Azar. You have a number of your CISO panel, yourself, Bob Schiff, James LaPiedra. La Piedra, I should say, and so many more. Conferences are getting back on track. I'm sure that many people know that conferences for the past year have just kind of thrown up their hands and said, better luck next year, and it looks like this one's actually going to be taking place. So I wanted to lead off with a bit of that news. What's happening here, and is this virtual? Is this in person? And what are you hoping to discuss here?
Yeah, the FutureCon is a great conference. I've had the privilege of giving a couple keynotes over the past few years there and opening comments. I've walked the show floor in the past. This one is going to still be virtual. That's good. Based out of Tampa, and I guess they're still not comfortable enough, so they're still going to do some more virtual ones before migrating over. But they do a fabulous job because it's a nice, focused niche group of people that attend, and it's good, solid content, and I really enjoy it. So I encourage people, if you get a chance, check out FutureCon and try to register. Would love to have you come and hear the session that I'm going to be talking about next week there. I did get contacted, though. I think it was on Monday. I do have a show that's coming up in the not too distant future, and that's going to be in May, I believe. And that's going to be up in Connecticut, and that's going to be a live show. So I'm actually going to be there in person. That'll be the first one since last year. I was at the RSA show, February into March timeframe, right when this whole pandemic kicked off. Ever since then, I've been doing virtual shows. So I'm kind of excited that it's going back to a live in-person show. And that one's going to be focusing on cybersecurity and the insurance industry. So it should be an exciting event.
And of course, you can speak to the fact that there's a whole new classification that you've kind of introduced us here on the program about, which is insurance for cyber attacks. And I'm sure that's going to come up when you speak there. So,
absolutely.
Fun times. Very glad to hear that, hey, like I said, things are getting back to a little bit of normal. So with that being said, Scott, you join us here every month to talk about the latest events, hacks, of course, with helpful, relevant tips to keep people safe and keep your information, data, bank accounts, all that stuff safe. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and start talking about some of these other articles that you sent over, and I'm trying to find them in order of the stuff that's happened a little bit in the past. And actually, just off the top of my head, I just wanted to say that you were the one who really outlined for our listeners just how bad the Solarwinds hack was. And I think just a day or two ago, we covered additional that most of the top officials of the national security, maybe the NSA, Department of Homeland Security. Most of their emails were compromised during that hack as well. So yeah, we're still finding out more and more about that one. I unfortunately don't have the article here with me, but I just got to say that, again, you're right. We're not going to know the full extent for a long time to come.
Yeah, and the interesting part, because you're dead right on that, that was DHS, Department of Homeland Security. The part, it wasn't just generic emails. These were the top head officials. That is concerning, because if the U.S. government can't protect those top officials, can't protect itself, you start to ask yourself, how do they protect us? And again, I'm not just trying to knock on the government, because they are working hard and they've made great improvements and they do amazing stuff and they stop thousands of breaches each day. The problem is it's the one or two breaches that slip through, such as this one, that go unnoticed for so long, that are catastrophic. And that has effects that go down the line and affect each and every one of us. And that's the big concern there.
Yeah, and of course, luckily, I think most of us aren't really, emailing our Department of Homeland Security. So,
Yeah.
like on a personal level, it may not seem like a lot, but like you said, these are the people that make decisions, make directives, and obviously, when it comes to matters of national security, letting foreign nations know what you're thinking and what information you have might be a little counterproductive to what it is you're trying to do. So, that's. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Let's see. So there was that one. I'm trying to think of anything else that happened the past week. There's tons and tons and tons of them. I think there was a new security breach, and I want to say it wasn't Visa. There was another one. I need to think a bit off the top of my head. All right, so let me keep racking my brain, Scott. Out of all the stories that you sent over, I have them all here in front of me. Which one would you like to start with? Let's start there.
Certainly, we could talk about the one here, and it was, I think, from ZDNet, was kind of interesting.
Sure.
We could start out with that if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Billions of records have been hacked already, make cybersecurity a priority or risk disaster, warns analyst. And I said that wrong. Make cybersecurity a priority or risk disaster. There we go. That's how you probably appropriately say that. This will go unheeded. And before we even get into the details of the article, this has been said, I think, since the internet has been around, for the past 20, 30 years. But obviously, it's become more and more of a thing as more of our lives and information shift online. What makes this call to urgency so much different, I guess, Scott? Or is this just the same call again?
Yes, it's definitely the same call again and again and again. We keep hearing it. But what I loved about this article is the way it's framed so we can get it a little bit more. And they start out right in the beginning there, contrasting, just looking at last year, 2020, and then contrasting that to the past 15 years prior. And if you combine those 15 years, there are more data breaches that have happened just in the last year than the culmination of the 15 years prior. And that's what they're calling this data breach crisis. So the sheer number of records that have been compromised. So what does it tell us? It hasn't gotten worse, despite all our efforts, your great efforts on this show, educating people each and every day, all the hard work I do in the trenches, and all my other fellow cyber colleagues. This is kind of a sobering statistic. And it makes you think again and saying, well, we did a lot, but maybe not enough, because it's getting worse. What's going on here? And I think part of the problem, it goes back to what we talk about, the human element. It comes up again and again. People have to change, not just always throw technology at it to solve problems, but the fundamental way that people handle cybersecurity and react to things, like when you hear about the importance of a strong password, the problem of password reuse, the lack of everybody using multi-factor authentication. Again and again and again, we go back to being the problem, unfortunately. So no matter how much we scream and yell, people need to start taking steps. It goes back to the fundamental. It's hard to change human nature. Until it affects you personally, you may put it off and put it off and put it off, but it has to be done. We have to think from a cyber security perspective for everything we do in life, unfortunately now, or we will keep being victimized.
Right. It's this issue of, I think, coming into the workforce, and especially in the workforce, that when a printer breaks, you call up IT and, you have them fix the printer. When, when the door breaks, you call maintenance and maintenance comes and fix the door. And then, of course, I think the same thing happened when it came to hacking, which, back in the day meant everything from your operating system being corrupt to, locking out of files due to ransomware, things like that. When your computer breaks, you call up IT and say, hey, my computer broke. It's never really, I guess, up until this point, yes, the message that you're trying to push, and the message that we've tried to push here on the show, is that, like you said, cybersecurity is everybody's business. It should fall on everyone, but I think the average person just thinks of it as IT's problem. It's not my problem. They should have something in place that I don't click that link. They should have something in place that we don't get access from outside. And that shift it's getting better. I would like to think. Obviously, the charts are a little alarming, but I would like to think they're getting better, and that these rises, Scott, are more from, like I said, more of our lives being online than it is, people being not secure. But I mean, I think the education's getting there. It's falling way behind the digitization of our lives.
Yeah, and that's a really nice way to say it, because it's not for a lack of education, but it can't keep up the pace per se. Because when we analyze things such as machine learning and artificial intelligence and the next generation of the internet, the advances in IoT and wireless, it's hard to keep up for somebody like myself, just being in the industry, reading and educating myself, just keeping up in the world of crypto. It's hard because things are changing so fast. So you can imagine the education, unfortunately, always follows. And we have often heard that adage about people that maybe start a job and they just get out of college. Their education was history. By the time they actually learned that and went for their degree, and now they're trying to apply it, it's already too late and they have to keep learning. So it's a constant battle to learn and absorb information. Well, we're not alone in doing that. Remember, hackers, they're very astute. They're constantly educating themselves, using the latest technology, using the latest vulnerability that they can exploit, and they use what works, and they share that information freely. And again, they got to get it right once. We got to get it right every time to really protect a company, protect a computer, protect a network. It's tough odds to win, but we're going to keep fighting them.
Yeah, absolutely. And although I do want to say, and I would love your opinion on this, when you talk to people in organizations and things like that, I know that you don't deal strictly with, the security side of it when it comes to the people on the ground and, how they operate in these businesses. But this paragraph right here kind of stood out to me, saying that, 10% increase in budget for security, making sure that, cybersecurity was sound, 10% increase in budget. But then they mentioned other things like cloud services grew 33%. So people buying more spaces on networks, people, making sure that more of their operations were happening in the cloud instead of here. So 33% there, 20% in cloud services grew. So them trying to compare they're digitizing things at 33% year over year or 20% year over year, as opposed to protecting things 10% year over year. That's kind of the impression it gives you, Scott. I'm wondering, I don't, at least from what I've heard, I don't think there's a straight correlation between you spend $1 million, you are $1 million more secure. This isn't exactly something that you can just chuck money at. I'm sure that they would love more funding, and I'm sure that more funding can do certain parts of their job better. But Scott, I don't know how much more investments it really needs, as opposed to, I guess, kind of practice and, kind of using what resources they already have.
Yeah, and your point is well taken, because one area that impresses me, when you have more budget, sure, can that help? It can, if it's spent in the right areas. And that's part of the dilemma a lot of companies have. They allocate, hey, we spent $1 million last year, we're going to raise it up 10 or 20% more in cybersecurity spending, or we're going to be that much more secure. Well, guess what? If you spend 1.5 million or 10 million, but in the wrong area, it's not going to do anything. So understanding where they always talk about crown jewels, where your value is in a corporation, understanding what your IP is, understanding really where your weaknesses are, and spend the money there to shore that up. That's really more important. Take care of the weak areas and not just spend for the sake of spending so you could tell your shareholders, hey, we spent 20% more on cybersecurity. No, that's not important. And also understanding what industry you're in. If you notice there, they talk about I think there's a nice graph if you have it up there. Yeah, percentage split of total known breaches by sector. So you'll notice different areas are targeted more than other words. And what do we mean by that? Look at healthcare. Healthcare is double the breaches than any other industry out there. That's concerning. So if you're looking to secure the gaming industry or media industry, guess what? Healthcare is twice as much. Why? Well, a big part of that is pandemic and COVID. That's where there's an emotional issue, and that's where people are flocking to get vaccinated, get the proper healthcare, stay healthy, do whatever they can. So the cyber criminals migrated over there with their scams, their phishing emails, their phone scams, so on and so forth, to really exploit that, their ransomware attacks. That's what tends to happen. Hot areas where there's concern or emotional issues or health or safety issues, they shift their game over to that, and they're really going to focus in and target. And I tell you what, when the dust settles, I think we're going to look back at 2020 and 2021 and probably say the healthcare sector got beat to death. And a lot of that is just because these aggressive ransomware attacks, and unfortunately, lives are at stake. So the ransom is going to be paid out quick there. They're going to be shelling out Bitcoins, whether directly from hospitals and doctors, whether it's through their cybersecurity insurance, or maybe a combination of the two. But that's reality, and that's where we are now. So as you mentioned at the onset of the conversation, maybe this is business as usual. Maybe this is what's going to continue to go on throughout the year, targeting that healthcare sector.
And of course, one of those, I think one of the reasons, and then we'll move on to our next topic, but one of the reasons that it's also hacked is, of course, investment, which is what it was getting at before. Scott, how many times did we hear about all these different hacks? WannaCry, the issue with the National Health Services over in the UK, municipal, state, school level systems. And how many times is it like, there was a vulnerability for Windows XP that we just didn't patch because we never upgraded our systems. I feel like if there was the best investment that a company and organization could do, no matter how much it costs, and I know that for some industries, like the healthcare industry, it can be almost impossible. But I feel like upgrading your system and hey, just like what we tell individuals all the time, update your phone, make sure everything's up to the latest patch, and don't run anything out of date, because that seems to be where a lot of the vulnerabilities happen.
Yeah, so true.
So there you go. So we're going to go ahead and move on from that one. But you're right. That was a great, different article. And I like how they put everything into perspective there. So, yep, you can find that more. And of course, Computer America will have a link to all of these. Scott, I dug through my browser history, and other than a lot of different stories, and a lot of gaming stuff. I play too many video games, but I will say, I did find these two articles that we did beginning of the week. Yeah, about beginning of the week. I wanted to bring them up to you because we talked about them on the show, and I wanted your reaction to them. The first one was going to be ransomware, and this particular one, I thought it was funny because it was a different kind. Because Scott, so many times we talk about ransomware, and it's as soon as people have been had, it's either pay up. Hope that they find a way to fix it or deactivate it, but more often than not, the answer is pay the ransom, and you still might not get your files back. This was a different take on it because an admin of a particular strain of ransomware, and I think it was an administrator of the Ziggy Ziggy ransomware is now refunding people Bitcoin because, it said pay over a certain amount of Bitcoin. And I believe he said that he's going to, in total, I want to say that they're going to return about $600,000 worth. No, I'm sorry. They didn't say exactly how much it was, but he was Ziggy, an administrator of Ziggy was refunding Bitcoin. Have you ever heard of something like that? Where, again, according to the hacker, it was a change of heart.
Yeah, and I think if I understood that angle right, it's in part because of the quick change in Bitcoin values, the skyrocketing values of Bitcoins, which to me tells you he wants to make sure, or she wants to make sure that this business model keeps going on, keep customers happy, and keep them paying into it. So sometimes companies will do that. They'll buy your loyalty by giving you coupons or discounts or whatever. And a lot of companies are extremely successful by building consumer confidence and building a strong brand. I look every time I come home, I look in the mail and I see, Bed Bath & Beyond and Bath and Body Works and all the, Kohl's and different coupons. And yes, my family all shops at those places. Why? Because they keep sending my wife these incentives and coupons and discounts. So it's very effective. So in a sense, that's kind of what I read from this a little bit. It creates good business atmosphere so they can strike again. And it's really sad, but it's effective.
That can certainly be a part of it because obviously people who produce ransomware want to make sure that people pay. If people just throw up their hands and assume that they'll never get their data back, then they will receive no money because they know that there's no point in it. I'm sure that there was some of that. The article also mentions this idea that and again, here are the posts right here, and they're, going to refund to the wallet that they stole from. The reason that the author of the article kind of gives is that, well, there have been bigger botnets and bigger ransomware, kind of criminal rings, Scott, that in the past couple of months have been cracked by international, task force and, the FBI and places like that. Essentially what they're hoping to lay low, I guess they were making so much Bitcoin and their ransomware was getting so prolific that I guess they're kind of hoping that law enforcement won't look their way if they return some of their ill-gotten gains. Now, obviously, since this was put out, they mentioned here the price of Bitcoin went from $39,000 when this was really, kind of taking off to today, where I think now we're almost, I haven't checked in 12 hours, but let's see, price of Bitcoin is currently, as of the show, $58,669.80. So essentially, every Bitcoin went up about $20,000. Now, of course, they're only going to give you back the Bitcoin, essentially what you paid before. Like, they're not giving you an equivalent increased value. So they get to keep a lot of money, Scott. But
they're profiting, trust me.
Yeah, they're profiting. They're just hoping to, I guess, kind of deflect some of the possibility that law enforcement will come after them as well.
Yeah, there's not a lot of honest criminals out there. So I don't feel bad for them when they're that deep in money. And I think the part that intrigues me about Bitcoin, and we've talked about this a little bit, and I'm trying to do a little research in the background about some of the crypto mining and Bitcoin mining and what goes into it, how much money can be made or can be lost in this entire ecosystem of cryptocurrency, and that spills right into cyber criminals and ransomware. And again, they're not all synonymous, but there's a high percentage of crisscross there that we certainly see. And Bitcoin seems to be the main player in all the payouts and all the ransomware cases that I've been dealing with. And I do often get from time to time, get calls from business colleagues from some very large companies that say, and I got one call in the middle of the night saying, "Oh crap, I need to talk to you now, Scott. I'm so sorry to call you, but," and then they go to explain how they were victims of ransomware and the Bitcoin and the price and should they pay it, shouldn't they, should they negotiate it, how reliable is their backup, has that been corrupted, so on and so forth. So you start to feel your heart kind of goes out to these poor business owners that are victims of this, and it happens every single day. So if nothing else, when you hear about ransomware, I always tell people, stop for a moment, take a breath, and ask yourself, have you backed up your data recently and disconnected it from your network and your computer and lock it up in a safe? Go spend $500 for a good backup system and just do it. Take a day and back everything up. It's worth it. You will not regret it.
For sure. And like you said, that's the best way to protect yourself from these ransomware is to just have a backup, because then it doesn't even matter. You can just rewind the clock. And by the way, they also mentioned at the very end of this, and then we'll move on, that the admin of the Ziggy ransomware said that he sold his house to be able to, which makes no sense. If you stole a bunch of Bitcoin and it went up 20 grand per Bitcoin, I don't know why we would have to sell your house to refund people. But also that he plans to become a ransomware hunter. Good luck with that. Like you said, not many honest criminals. So there's that. Speaking of not honest, though, I wanted to throw one more out there. I did not actually cover this on the show, but I found it, very relevant to what we're talking about. The Apple App Store. Many people consider it safe, obviously more so than the Android store. I cover this, yes, I read about this stuff in my spare time. It's work and also play. This gentleman, Scott, if I recall correctly, he downloaded an app with the same name as a known physical, or I guess kind of hardware wallet that cryptocurrency would, that had Trezor, Trezor. They make small hardware devices that act as cryptocurrency wallets that are physical, not digital. So, you can, like you said, detach them from a network, keep them more safe. So anyways, he downloaded it, he entered his information, his public ID, his private ID, and then, hey, less than a second later, Scott, 17.1 Bitcoin, or about $600,000 worth of Bitcoin, was immediately transferred out of his account into another wallet. And he says that he doesn't blame the scammers. He blames Apple because he trusted an Apple app that he downloaded. These things are getting scary.
Yeah. Well, again, we've said this, and we kind of chuckle when we say it, and I'll repeat it again. Nothing's 100% safe. It's impossible. So, and just like if you go to a bank, and I often ask people, I said, how many bank accounts do you have? Most people I talk to, especially as they start to maybe get older and their net worth increases, have multiple bank accounts. And I always ask why. Because nobody trusts the bank in itself, because banks get hacked. Everything gets hacked. Cryptocurrency gets hacked. Scammers are targeting everything. So if you do spread your money out, you spread your cryptocurrency out, you have multiple platforms that you use, multiple devices, guess what? The more you have, it can get more complex, but you minimize your chances of getting hacked sometimes also. Right. Apple, for the most part, I would say, is safer. And in part, it's because there's less Apple-used devices and computers in the world of ecosystems. It doesn't necessarily mean it is more secure, although technically it probably is if you argue that.
Yeah, and Scott, just to let you know how this happened, because people may be wondering, how did this slip past Apple? The short of it is that the app had been reported before because of a Trezor, for whatever reason. They're in the business of making crypto wallets, yet they don't have a smartphone app. I don't know why they don't do that. But anyways, I guess it's just not their business model. Anyways, they reported a fake Trezor app that had been put up on the App Store. It had been taken down. A couple days later, a new one popped up. Apple had taken that one down. This third one popped up, and there may have even been more before. This is just what Apple claims. It popped up, and they said that the spokesperson, or the person who spoke to Apple about this app, said it was for tracking network activity and stuff like that. Essentially, nothing to do with crypto. They just happened to share a name, and because Trezor didn't have a smartphone app, they didn't infringe on anything. And they're like, "Oh, we don't do anything with crypto." So they got it approved by Apple. Apple approved it. They looked over the source code. Everything looked good. And then within a couple of days, and Scott, I think this is where the real security flaw, if there even is one on Apple's part, they completely changed the back end to turn it into what looked like a crypto wallet. And they got through saying it was one app, immediately changed everything after it was approved. And I guess Apple doesn't have to approve major updates. And yeah, that's when they started collecting. And it was up on the store for about 5 days, at which point this gentleman downloaded it, installed it. And he said that he looked at the reviews, or, passing glance, there were like 150 5-star reviews. Once he got into the reviews, though, there were multiple people in the reviews saying, "Hey, this is a scam. It stole my Bitcoin. It stole my money. Don't download this thing." And, all the others were obviously paid fakes. And the few that were real were obviously hidden, behind the fake 5-star reviews. So, Scott, that's how it happened. Again, I don't know if that's really Apple's fault, but clearly someone found essentially a way around Apple, I guess, just a little bit.
Yeah, because they took a strong stance back in 2004, banning crypto wallets completely from the store. Then they started allowing them slowly, but with certain restrictions on there. And one article I was looking at earlier, it said that Apple removed, just last year alone, 6,500 apps having hidden or undocumented features, which were basically scam apps. So are they doing their due diligence? Sure. Could they do better? Absolutely. And the same thing is true, unfortunately, on the Android platform. Maybe it's a little bit worse there, because there are many spots that you can do many stores, I guess you could say, where these apps are posted, and we know they're not vetted as well. They're not as strict. Nobody's going to be 100%. I think that's really the key there. So if and when something looks scammy or questionable, you got to stop and you got to be careful. And the majority of the world of crypto, I shouldn't say the majority, that's a wrong statement, but a good percentage of the world of crypto is closely tied to scammy stuff. And all these companies that have released coins, there's only a small percentage, somebody recently said, they were quoted as saying, is a small percentage of the actual coins that are released are legit. And that scared me right away, because there are thousands of coins and startups and companies using that as a means to get into the space to hopefully go viral and make a mint overnight. So use caution immediately when somebody's trying to claim something or something's in that ecosystem, because nothing is 100% vetted there. That is for sure.
Right, for sure. And it's almost like, and it's one thing to blame crypto, but it's like, in my mind, it's like blaming Black Ski Mask. I don't know how many people purchase Black Ski Mask for a legitimate skiing adventure, but I feel like the majority of Black Ski Mask are used for other things other than skiing. And unfortunately, I feel like that's kind of what Bitcoin in particular is to cryptocurrency, and maybe even Ethereum to a lesser extent, is that, hey, it's a decentralized, no oversight way of transacting or pulling out money. And hey, if you're trying to get a ransom or if you're trying to buy illegal things, boy, what a perfect solution. So it's not that it's what the tool was not made for crime, but the tool is favorited by, people who are going to do crime, I guess.
Yeah, that's so true. It's just like you can go to a store and you could buy a knife, or somebody could buy a gun to say they want to protect themselves at home. It doesn't mean they're a bad guy or things like that. And I think the association, especially with cryptocurrency, and I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos on it lately just because I'm fascinated about that and the mining side. But if you look back at Silk Road and some of these other things, it's got kind of that negative stigma associated to it that it just
they
can't
were the
shake.
first ones. They were the first ones to embrace it. We have to be honest here. Whenever someone tells me that, oh yeah, I earned a lot of Bitcoin back in like 2011, 2010. I was like, were you buying sex, drugs, or guns? I mean, that's what it was used for. So, those are the communities that first embraced it. Are there other communities that have embraced cryptocurrency? Absolutely. But yeah, they're still the first. So
yeah, and you can't ban it necessarily, because if you look at a dollar, you could argue and say, well, more money goes back and forth with drug trade using U.S. dollars. Does that mean we should ban it? Well, no. you got to look at the problem, not point the finger at the means to get the drugs.
And, not to get political, but like most of society's problems, maybe the best way to actually clean it up is to bring it into the light of day, legislate it, make it so that it is consumer friendly. So you don't have to trust these weird sites that you don't really understand. Make it more public, make it more accessible, and hey, it'll be safer. So,
yeah, I think maybe one final thought on that one thing that stands out, why are regulators, politicians, the banking industry as a whole so pushed back often on cryptocurrency? And as you dig into it, you realize how much money, especially the banking institution, makes on fees and people that don't pay their bill on time and the interest rates and so on and so forth. And then when you realize how much money they will not make when people use Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, you clearly understand the motive and the reasoning there.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of incumbent and I guess kind of there's a lot of incumbent money that Bitcoin threatens to disrupt. So I can definitely see why that would happen. But Bitcoin aside, and by the way, to Craig's question, no, this gentleman did not receive his money back. He was $600,000. That's where that number came from earlier. $600,000 when it was stolen. And now, unfortunately, every time he looks at it, he said now his Bitcoin would be worth over $1 million. So
wow. That's a lot of money. I encourage people, if they want to get into cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, or any of the other ones, treat that, I call it funny money. If I invest money in the stock market, I have to be willing to lose it 100% without it affecting my livelihood, my lifestyle, and everything else, because there is a chance that very well could happen to you.
He mentions that he put his savings in it and he had moved more and more. He bought in when it was at like 5,000, and obviously it's shot up from 5,000. But hey, his actual business of operating a dry cleaners, he was hoping to fund that through sale of Bitcoin. But yeah, either way, that can certainly happen. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you actually flip over, let's see, I believe this is an online magazine that you sent me, Flip HTML5, made with Flip HTML5. I would have to go all the way back to the beginning of this. Let's see, what online magazine is this? Times. Oh, yeah, there we go. Beverly Hills Times.
Beverly
there we
Hills
go.
Times, yes.
And if you flip on over to page 29 of this, and we're going to go ahead and do this, there is someone's face that we see right there. Scott, what's happening here? Why do I see you in Beverly Hills Times and high-tech stalking?
Yeah, well, I was actually brought in to provide some contributed editorial for this publication, and it's kind of an interesting publication. I mean, you could see, even if you go back to the very the cover of it, for example, you will quickly see that this is really kind of the world of Beverly Hills, and these are all famous stars and things like that. These are people that the Grammys and all the other awards. They get copies of these magazines, and I was brought in to see if I could provide editorial content so some of these rock stars can protect themselves. And some of the issues that I talk about in this particular article is the high-tech stalking. And oftentimes GPS trackers are a huge problem with many famous people. So, usually you think about law enforcement or politicians, but really a lot of these famous celebrities are very careful not to be stalked, and they are followed. And it's oftentimes by under their car, somebody slaps a GPS tracker. It's not always because they're out to hurt the individual, but a lot of times it's the paparazzi. They want to know when Britney Spears is moving from point A to point B because they want to get that photo. That photo may land them $1,000 or $10,000, especially if it's something compromising or something that's salacious that they could sell to one of the tabloids. So what we focused on is a tool that will allow you to actually sniff a vehicle to see if there is a GPS tracker or trackers placed on the vehicle. And typically the way GPS trackers work in simple is once the vehicle starts moving, they start pinging. They receive the GPS latitude and longitude, the location of the vehicle, and they have an accelerometer that once they sense that the vehicle's moving, they start pinging out the cellular wide area network, the 4G LTE network that makes our phones work. They transmit that latitude and longitude to whoever is tracking the individual or the vehicle as a target. And they could follow it down to pinpoint accuracy and know exactly where that celebrity it is at any moment, or that high net worth individual or politician or cheating spouse or whatever they're trying to track. They can do it. So we make tools that will allow you to quickly locate that hidden GPS tracker, which is typically underneath on the carriage of the vehicle, kind of hidden. And they're small, the size of a matchbook, some of these things. And there are GPS trackers now that will actually run for months on these batteries, and they'll sit quiet and dormant until they want to start tracking them or the vehicle starts moving. So pretty hot topic. And we sell tons of tools, mostly to private investigators, technical surveillance countermeasure experts, and a lot of law enforcement agencies to find these GPS trackers.
Whenever, and by the way, I really like the fact that you include an example of like Tile. This is a product that is marketed to consumers to track everything from their pets to their car keys to, something that's very innocuous, but at the same time, when used nefariously, is very easy to just turn into a person tracker. And I like that you include that, hey, these are not weird, sophisticated pieces of equipment. Anyone can get these.
Yeah. And I love your point you bring up there, because in the case of the Tile there, is Bluetooth Low Energy. We work with search and rescue agencies. I got a call the other week from a search and rescue agency that's buying our equipment used for traditional search and rescue. And they actually found a older individual who had Alzheimer's in the state of New Jersey. He got lost, and they were able to quickly track him with a Bluetooth Tile that was on his person. So technology, it's nice when technology can be used for good purposes in helping keep people safe or saving lives. And I'm trying to focus more and more of my mission to educate people there are good uses for technology, and let's use it for good. And let's stop the bad guys that are using it for bad.
Right, absolutely. And by the way, whenever I hear one of these stories about GPS trackers, I always go back to this one, and it's been 10 years already, but this one from Wired, and it's a very, very short little article. But it was a student that went to the mechanic, and the mechanic went up under his car and found a tracker, found a GPS tracker. And he took pictures of it, posted on social media, said, hey, what is this? Does anyone know what this is? This is back in the day, right after 9/11. This was back in 2010. So, not right after, I'm sorry. This was, a couple years after, but obviously, he was an Arab American. And essentially everyone's like, oh, that's a GPS tracker. And they found the exact one. And then the FBI contacted him. They called him and said, hey, can we get our equipment back? And it's so weird to me that the FBI would just call them up and ask for their illegally, spying on a U.S. citizen equipment. But hey, it happened. Yep. So
yeah, it happens. And it's interesting, just looking at that picture, I can quickly tell based upon the size and the specific scanner they're using there, that's a 3G technology. It's a GSM tracker that's hidden in that. And that's a GSM scanner where you have to be about, at least in that case for that scanner, about 10 feet away from the actual tracker when it's pinging to locate it. Since then, things have shrunk. They're more efficient. They're higher power. They last longer. They're harder to find. And hence why we've developed some specific tools. That tool there to find it was probably a $500 cheapy scanner that you can buy on eBay nowadays, because that won't work for modern GPS trackers. So They've gotten much more advanced, the actual GPS tracking tools. So I think people need to be aware of it and use the proper tools to find the proper tracker.
Yeah, well, and of course, again, that one was just found just by a mechanic. But it's obviously this is Berkeley Varitronics systems, and kind of what you guys specialize in. So I can completely see that. And hey, also funny that you knew what it was right off the bat. Like I said, that was 10 years ago. So it's only gotten better, smaller, faster, all that good stuff. So speaking of that, we have less than 10 minutes left, so we can get into another one of these topics. Let's see. You have two stories here that I also wanted to cover. Although to interject some levity to the situation, I wanted to cover the story real quick. Scott, I don't know if this falls exactly under your purview, but I did want to say I found this article while looking for things to talk about. And I did want to say that, people going off the grid and trying to hide from law enforcement happens all the time. And I guess not so much phishing, trying to protect yourself. And, this gentleman obviously had everything he could do to keep himself, kind of off the grid, private, away from law enforcement. But he was compromised because he had, I guess, some identifiable tattoos on his arms and hands. And Scott, get this, he was making cooking tutorials on YouTube, and the FBI at some point were able to identify his tattoos. He never showed his face. He never showed, any other part of his body other than his hands and arms. And yeah, the law enforcement was able to find him, catch him, and yeah, he was a fugitive, for being in the mafia. So
I love it.
And again, I don't know if this strictly falls under you, but I mean, this guy had.
It really does, and I'm glad you brought this story up, because I think what's interesting and fascinating is how much social media, and we'll lump big tech and social media under that for YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and so on and so forth. What we put out there can be used as digital evidence against us. And if we're in the video, we have to remember there's AI is doing advanced facial recognitions. There are databases with our mugs in there. I was able to test one of them out at a security trade show I was at, and I was able to check and find my license plate and all the spots that my license plate was scanned. So I was blown away when, not just the fact that you can do that, but when you can couple content, your face, all the other information that's out there on the internet about you. And really it's your digital footprint, how that can be used for good or for bad. We want to keep in mind. And I've shared that before. Before I hire someone, do I go out on the internet and social media and do a check, not just a traditional background check for all employees? Yes, I do, through a third party, but I do my own due diligence. If I see somebody that's posting crazy pictures and we learn they've got a past and a history, am I going to be quick to call them up and want to interview them? Probably not. You could argue, is that discriminating? Is that this? Is that that? Well, I have to protect our company, our employees, and my customers and the IP there. So yeah, everybody should be cautious about somebody that puts out things on social media that is not appropriate or that is illegal.
Right.
It's amazing they found him through his tattoos, though. That's pretty neat. But they do have a tattoo database, so
Yeah.
and again,
Yeah. Well, and just picking through some of the relevant information before we move on from this, but apparently he was hiding from drug trafficking back in 2014. He was staying in the Dominican Republic, making living a nice quiet life on a sandy beach after doing his apparently doing his deeds, and he. Him and his wife were making Italian cooking videos. Yes, an Italian criminal was caught by showing off his Italian cuisine. But he was showing off his cooking technique, and Interpol caught it. And he's been since extradited back to Italy to have his day in court. But
that is great.
It's
they probably bring Rachel Ray in as an expert witness.
What did you really think of his marinara recipe? Was it up to snuff? Yes, exactly. But yeah, that was unfortunately, though, I got to say, most unfortunately, they did not link the videos that he had posted. So you don't get to try it for yourself. But there you go. I found that one very different because it was not a facial recognition, maybe tattoo recognition. Maybe it's better than we thought it was, Scott. But someone somehow recognized him. So there you go. Okay, so with that being said, we have time for one more article, and I'll let you go ahead and decide between NIST, seek small business help to develop cybersecurity standards, which would be great because, whenever we talk about cybersecurity, it's a very patchwork, best practices, here's what you can do, but there's never a standard that we can hold companies to, are you doing enough? And then the other one is from 50 Plus Life, about phishing attacks. Both will be very relevant to our audience. I'll let you decide. Last one.
Oh, yeah, either one is great for me. Quick question. How about the one on ARM? Did you guys cover that?
I've pulled up a couple of those, and I saw that you had pulled that up as well. I did not have a chance to really dig into this, but yeah, we can talk about ARM if you want.
I just maybe brief. I'll give it a brief overview, just because I think this is a pretty powerful article looking forward looking, because we've talked so many times about IoT, billions upon billions of connected devices and artificial intelligence and 5G, and they're all at the crossroads now. Now, what ARM has done is they've introduced, in a sense, the next generation of an integrated circuit, an ARM-based chip that really is designed with security baked into it. And this is what I've always been preaching for the past 5+ years, why IoT is so scary to me, because it's really not secure. It's not built in from the ground. They are actually taking a stab at doing this, which I applaud them for, because that just means our sensitive data, the sensitive code that is in IoT devices. When I say IoT devices, I mean the wireless cameras that we use, anything that we plug into the internet, our Nest thermostat, so on and so forth, now in the future will actually be secure, or more secure, I should say. And that to me is a very profound statement that they're making here. And I'm excited to see that they're finally doing it. It costs a lot of money, I'm sure, and it's going to take a long time before this goes to the mainstream, but it gives you some hope in the future for IoT. And this is the first strong step that I've actually seen there, where it's going to prevent hackers from overwriting existing code in the ARM system there, and placing malware in there that they can remotely now activate and make botnet armies and cause all these other problems, which many of the breaches that we've talked about. So exciting news there that's coming forth.
This is definitely kind of what we end on. We have about 2 minutes left, but I did want to read verbatim exactly what kind of changes, and this is the exciting stuff, if you can call this stuff exciting. Confidential compute architecture, CCA, in the new version of the ARM architecture to shield code and data while in use. Where the device operating system, or the OS, traditionally has the highest authority, the confidential compute architecture mechanics change that so that the OS still decides what runs and when the applications are moved into a separate hardware-protected area of the memory, isolated from the rest of the system. So, Scott, I guess what that means is that the the architecture can call back to the data, and the operating system can say, oh, this program runs with this permission and do that. But it would be up to the it's asking permission instead of just the operating system having permission to access everything. This is the operating system asking permission of the hardware. Can I get this data for this reason and that kind of thing? And then of course you can have lots of checks and balances in between the, kind of the calling and retrieving of information. And I guess that's what makes it secure.
Yeah, in a sense that is. And also when you analyze the importance of protecting data at different stages comes into play. And oftentimes people say, oh, this is encrypted, but it may not. It may be encrypted when the data is at rest or when it's stored here. Is it encrypted while it's in motion from point A to point B? So as you dive into that, and that argument's been coming up again and again when you hear, oh, our application is end-to-end encryption.
Right.
But they don't really break down what part or parts are truly encrypted. And hence this is a major change coming forward. So it's all good.
Absolutely. And of course, ARM is, as I said, over 100 billion devices have ARM already, and they're hoping that the next 100 billion are going to be powered by this. And hey, Scott, let's face it, more than 100 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, ScottSchober.com, ComputerAmerica.com. We'll have links to everything. Scott, once again, thank you so much. And of course, we're looking forward to your appearance out there at FutureCon. Good luck with that.
Great. Thanks again. Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone. And hey, we'll be back tomorrow. We have an interview with the inventor of the cell phone. Really looking forward to that. And hey, we'll be able to show you that tomorrow. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.